Good morning. Well, I'm here in the studio. I thought I would start documenting this process just a little bit. Um, Social media and all that, and people have told me that someone would actually find this interesting. So um, I'm here in the studio and working on some music. I was just listening to what I did last night. Where? That's Pro Tools up there, by the way. So this is what I came up with yesterday. I started off with this, like a simple idea. With this cool delay. So I kind of recorded a minute or two of that. Then I added the second line to it, which is kind of doing the same thing, but kind of a harmony. So now there are two of them. So there's getting some harmonic kind of complexity. And then I added this solo line that comes in about here. Which is a little loud right now. And then I added this bass line. So that's kind of where that's going. And I've got 3, 4, 5 of these little chunks. And see what it feels like. See if there's a connection between them. See if they're pieces of a suite or maybe actually end up getting edited together with some connecting material into some kind of a single work of art. Okay, so I thought I would maybe start with kind of a pad, like a keyboard pad thing. So I found this long delay, and I was going to do like double stops and like real kind of pure intonation. Yeah, so I put down a track of kind of like harmonics. With all of these natural harmonics and pure intonation. And I'm going to put some double stops on top of that and see what that sounds like. All right, so what I've done here is I basically tracked 3 tracks of double stops in sort of these just intonated double stops using various overtones that I was using on that first track. So I take 2 of the pitches, put them together. So I've got 3 tracks of this kind of stuff. Pulling out these overtones with distortion to bring out kind of the undertones of it. And my goal here is going to be to try to put together a track that has all of this just intonation, richness, and integrity to it, but still has some harmonic variety, so it's not just all like a C7 chord or an F7 chord. Morning again. Well, here I am back in the studio. There's my bike that I'm not on. And working on this thing. That's a Roger Lynn Adrenaline, which is a pretty cool thing that I've been messing around with. So what I've got up here is this F just intonation kind of thing. And then I laid in some of these little distorto just intonation chords that come swinging in. Like here's one coming up right here. We've got that just intonation kind of vibe. 7 and stuff like that. So what I'm thinking it needs is two things. What I'm thinking is kind of something rhythmic and then something melodic on top of that. A rhythmic context, and we're going to get started with that. And that's what the adrenaline sounds like. I've been tweaking this little program here, this preset. Thinking of putting down maybe some chords with that, kind of like, you know, spaced throughout in there, and sort of chords that would ring with this sort of rhythm, like that one. There's a good one. So what I'm going to do is weed through these guys and pull out the ones that don't work. And so what I did was I put on this adrenaline thing, but I put a whole track of that down also to just kind of keep it synced up. This thing here. All right, so back in the studio. It is now Monday. Haven't listened to this stuff over the weekend. Been doing yard work. So I'm coming back to it with fresh ears, listening to a whole lot of tracks in Pro Tools that I have accumulated on Friday. I did a bunch of recording on top of this droney thing, and now I have to listen to it all. So I've been listening through all this stuff and trying to figure out shape. Where is it going? Is it going anywhere? What's going on? And so sifting through all that, and this is going to require another pot of tea, I think. Okay, so it's Wednesday. So here's what happened with that piece. I had another idea. So I was riding my bike, and as often happens, I had a idea for some music and jotted it down into my voice record on my phone. And it's sort of like this and then this other melody like Robert Schumann in the middle of nowhere. And so I came back and I started working on it. I knew I wanted the da-da-da-da-da-da-da to be kind of like distorted violin with this subtone thing that I've been messing with, where you play 2 notes and you hear 3 notes with distortion. So having 2 of those double stops, this is very rough, but kind of sounds like, unmute that guy. So it sounds a mess right now, but when all of that gets coordinated rhythmically, because I was just improvising that, I think it's going to sound pretty cool. So that's the idea. And then the second idea, I just sketched in real rough over here. And it's sort of like, that's that melody, the Robert Schumann melody, right? And then I might even go there. It's so corny, but I'm hearing it where the bass line is going to come out like, so it's this kind of rolling bass line, and rhythmically they don't quite coordinate, which is kind of nice. And then I'm going to throw on top of that some sort of a rhythmic idea. It's on the speaker. So I was kind of messing with that, and I'm not sure if those chords may change. And that lyrical idea kind of goes off and does its thing. And so those are the ideas that I'm working with. So it's a completely different piece now. And instead of thinking of this as sort of a triptych, this is now a single piece. It may be a totally different piece. I think it is. And and so it's going to be probably something that will also, I'm kind of thinking of it, it's turning into a string quartet. is what's happening, because I'm thinking of cello lines, and then the viola, da 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 da, and the violins on top, da 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 da. Ba. So I think I'm going to do two versions. Will be electric violin overdubs with distortion and doing that. Another way will be string quartet clean, but with chunky chord resonance. So that's what happened lately. I'm pacing. I'm pacing around my studio, which is something I do from time to time. And the idea of this was that, I do this thing where when you take these double stops and you tune them just right, they create a third note called a subtraction tone, which has to do with the difference. It's also called a difference tone, the difference between the frequencies of the notes. And so what happens is they create a third tone. So I'm playing two, you hear a third, so it's a complete triad. So if you took two of those, you would have these two triads over each other. So what I did was I played two notes back and forth, back and forth. Really annoying. And what I did was then tried a bunch of other notes. Hope you can. These combinations that work with these notes, these combinations work, and just kind of trying to figure out how these double stops are going to work. So, because that's kind of like, it's actually making it work. So so I tried some stuff, and here's like. They don't all work, but I'm trying to figure out which ones do, is the trick. Without making it too much of a formula, figuring out a lot of different variations that all sound good, so that this thing is constantly changing like a diamond. And then I started messing with this Robert Schumann idea. So trying to kind of mess with that and see where that wants to go. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this thing. So I'm really getting into the way these notes form larger harmonies with distortion. So I started excerpting just the melodic notes, figuring out which combination. They do when you combine them in just a certain way with the distortion. They create these third notes, and so it's creating these very thick but very resonant harmonies, because they're all basically just intonated, the whole thing to itself. So it's resonant in a way that we don't hear typically.